So now we've got a panel of specially selected SBG Europe sponsors who are going to share their insights into the challenges faced by the European sports broadcasting sector when it comes to the cloud, a subject that we've already heard a little bit about, of course. So welcome to the stage. We've got Greg from Arqiva, Jonathan from NetInsight, Chris from Zixi, and Srihari from Amagi. Thanks very much for joining us. So between your organisations, there's a good mix of managed services and SaaS products across contribution, distribution, transmission, with a bit of overlap between what you're all offering as well. So we'll get some good perspectives, hopefully, for this conversation. So over the next 20 minutes, we're going to look really at that kind of transition to the cloud and address subjects such as optimising connectivity for on-demand workflows. We want to look at the challenges in overlaying media functionalities, issues to do with scale and monitoring, and where AI and ML fits in as well, and linear versus non-linear content delivery, and the issues, of course, around sustainability, which is obviously very much a key topic for today's discussions. So just to get us started, if we can, Jonathan, we'll start with you if we may. What would you say are the challenges that the broadcasting sector is facing at the moment when it comes to contributing sports content via the cloud?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, and we've touched on a lot of it here today, just the sheer volume of streams that have to be created and delivered and moved around. And that, you know, we're targeting contribution here, but the pressure is at both ends of the chain. We not only have to create more from an event-based kind of perspective, but we also have to deliver out to an ever-increasing number of platforms at the other end. And so all that pressure to find ways to more easily deal with the scale of that problem, it kind of leads us towards consuming, more on-demand, more ubiquitous connectivity using generic IP services, and all these things lead us to lean on potentially cloud services. But of course, that can then come with some challenges.
And on that subject of the challenges, Chris, can you give us an idea? How do those challenges impact the overall efficiency of the contribution workflow?
Well, I think when we first started talking about using the cloud for this kind of setup, it was all about, contracting and expanded resources, and that's how you get the most out of your cloud provider. And I think a lot of the clients that we talk to today are maybe guilty of leaving things running, maybe not, using automation to a certain extent to help with that. So things like, leaving cloud instances running when they don't need to be. And with sport and OU, it's very relevant. It's a stop and start business. And also, when you think about receiving streams from people, maybe you feel like you're not in control of that. And maybe people are sending you streams that you can't stop and start. So, when we talk to people about, running automation systems to help spin up and shut down resources and stop and start streams when they're required. And I think by doing that, you're not only reducing your overall total cost of ownership with these systems, but also, I'm scared to say anything after the last panel, but sort of the sustainability angle of it as well.
Thank you. And Srihari, with cloud infrastructure, how do you address the challenge of overlaying media appropriate functionalities?
So we go, again, all of us as an industry go where consumers go, a lot more streaming-based consumption, democratization of how end consumers are consuming content relevant to sports. We're able to take a lot more content in front of end consumers via direct-to-consumer apps. So we're seeing end-to-end from an ecosystem standpoint, the ability to take something from production all the way to end consumers as a chain. We're looking at use cases multiplying significantly. So when you look at solutions, from an Amagi perspective, we're looking at marketplaces where content can be made available. So ecosystem stakeholders from a platform to a rights holder can go onto a marketplace on one front. From a curation and presentation standpoint, looking at services around it and working right from contribution all the way to distribution, and Amagi sit in the middle as a solution provider. And then obviously monetization, everybody needs to make money from it, looking at monetization services as well. So looking at solutions across the chain at this stage, not just Amagi, but we're seeing variety of providers in the ecosystem looking at building for this kind of scale.
Yeah. And sorry, just quickly, same question to you, Greg, from Arqiva's perspective, that around that challenge of overlaying media appropriate functionality onto the cloud.
Well, I guess there's a number of different challenges. I think firstly is we talked about a kind of it's been talked about kind of there's a bit of a mindset challenge to actually getting people to kind of commit to putting media functionality in the cloud, because people do like buying hardware in our industry. And then it's making sure that what you're developing in the cloud is, and offering in the cloud is delivering value to the users of those services. So is it offering something that the hardware equivalent can't deliver? Scalability, on-demand, availability, whatever it might be. But equally, there are some non-negotiables, right? So latency, performance, so on and so forth, have to be there. And those are some of the challenges I think you're trying to wrestle with developing cloud-based services is delivering value add capability while not dropping a ball on the non-negotiables.
Jonathan, you're nodding along there. Go on.
Yeah, no, I think it's. I think that's really key is this kind of overlay, and we need to be honest about the cloud and what it can do and what it can't do. And I think we spent a lot of time getting very hyped up about cloud first. Let's move everything to the cloud. But the reality of that architecture is it's suited to 100 brilliant things, and one of them it's not very good at is 100% uptime delivery of live video signals. So guess what we're doing? We're delivering live video signals. And so as vendors, it's our job to kind of demystify the complexities of dealing with that. And actually, that's good old-fashioned broadcast engineering that fixes that. And so I think, providing tools that overlay cloud architectures and topologies to hand our customers appropriate tooling to make their operation fly and make use of the advantages we want from cloud is a really important focus of what we should be doing.
And on that point about demystifying, whereabouts would you say you are, either as an organisation or perhaps maybe it's easier to comment more broadly as an industry, whereabouts we are in that kind of journey, if you like?
Yeah, and I think the journey's interesting. I think we're a vendor that covers everything from traditional tier one contribution networks all the way through to cloud-based cloud-based tools now. And there is still a huge amount of investment in that traditional end of our business by our customers. If you're looking to do uncompressed delivery of video feeds at the lowest latency of the highest quality with the very best reliability, you might choose not to use a cloud solution for that. But what we're seeing is not all streams are created equally. And so we want our customers to be able to make choices about how they invest in those streams. And so your premium, production feed might have a higher value to you than some of your supporting second screens, your fan engagement streams. And so it's thinking about giving a consistent approach and platform, media-centric tools that allow you to make those choices more effectively.
Chris, you touched earlier on the subject of scale. How much of a challenge is it when it comes to monitoring kind of multiple streams? And I'm interested to know what role does AI, ML play in helping to address that as well?
Yeah, well, I think we talked a little bit about more and more streams, more and more content from, tier 2, tier 3 locations, maybe with some specialized sport. So, the concept of having someone monitoring an individual stream at an MCR level might be a bit in the past, because now we've got lots of data points around the stream. So rather than looking at the picture, at Zixi we collate over 9 billion data points a day. And that's data points on network information, video quality information, kind of resource information that's hosting this software. And by having all these data points, you can actually start to feed those into machine learning algorithms. So they can start to, ingest all these data points, look at the data points, and start to see if a video stream or a data stream is behaving abnormally. So, maybe the RTT is increasing on a network connection. Maybe we've got some memory leak on a software engine that someone sat in a traditional MCR watching a video on the screen wouldn't know until it goes off air. Whereas, in fact, we can start to feed this data into ML, get back a result, and then we can start to say, okay, well, this stream is starting to change. It's looking abnormal. Maybe we should investigate that before it goes black on the video screen. So by using AI and machine learning and AI, it means that we can start to get a predictive nature into what's going on with the streams.
Yeah. Greg, anything to add on the AI ML front?
I think, I guess related to that, and perhaps it's kind of to do with AI and ML, but it's also to do with just more generally giving control and observability to services that we provide in the cloud or otherwise. And I think that's vitally important as more and more content's being generated, more and more content's being distributed, it's being compiled and packaged in more and more dynamic ways, delivered to more and more consumers over more and more platforms. There is a massive complexity to deal with. And complexity means a need for automation, it means a need for observability, for predictability of performance and knowing what's happening within your ecosystem. And I think that AI and ML play a big part in that, but I think also, again, it's going back to the kind of a mindset thing that, you know, putting automation and digitization at the heart of workflows is vital. And otherwise, there is no possibility to build this advanced ecosystem that our customers are aspiring to serve all of this content to all of these consumers in great new ways.
Srihari, also on the subject of scale, but looking at things from a slightly different perspective, if you like. As more shifts to the cloud, can you give us a sense of how vendors are addressing the challenges of scale and in particular the total cost of ownership as well?
Interesting. So again, we are a cloud native company, always been. We've looked at end consumer transition, in turn problems for our customers, and in turn solutions we build across the chain. There are, again, when we've started off maybe 10 years back, we've had to do things on the cloud, bring things back onto the ground. Say, for example, a simple distribution with our broadcast playout finally comes onto a traditional cable distribution. So managing interconnect, so take assets onto the cloud, bring it back as a simple example onto a fiber or satellite-based distribution infrastructure, needs interoperability, working with vendors across the chain. So we've looked to solve as we go. Currently, we're looking at, for example, latency as a key challenge as more and more premium live production happens on the cloud for our customers. With few leading broadcasters, we are working with, from a latency reduction standpoint, we've adopted TR07 as a transport standard with JPEG XS. Video codec, purely to reduce latency. That's one challenge we're solving. Looking at security, looking at localization of feeds itself. Can one production of one live event and variations of it going out? Again, variety of applications around it. Looking at solving it holistically within us, talking to vendor ecosystems, say from a distribution standpoint, in context of some of our friends here, to look at how we can take it to market differently. For example, NBC in the UK, we hand off to Arqiva on their cloud head-in, and from there they carry on to traditional distribution, traditional satellite and fiber distribution for them, just as a simple example. Yeah.
And just quickly, because it's fairly recent news, can you give us a sense of where Telio, your recent acquisition, where does that fit in to all of this?
See, as a company vision, we've looking at building solutions across the chain. When I say chain, glass to glass, from production all the way to somebody consuming content on a TV. And as we look at the chain, we're seeing areas where we can add value, obviously with Playout, and just as one of our core products that we sell. Live production is a standard extension, and with Telio and many of the customers we already have, it was a natural extension in terms of building live production capabilities, which we already have on areas of our product, but then Telio brought in different layers of again, they have various USPs within their core product, which complemented beautifully into what we do today already.
Fantastic, thank you. So obviously the session before this focused on sustainability, and it's a key topic here today. So I'm interested to know from each of you, how do you feel that cloud providers and media service companies more generally as well, how are they integrating those metrics, which again was a key subject that was discussed earlier. How are they integrating those metrics into what's being offered to the market at the moment? Greg?
I have to say, with some difficulty, because it is the supply chains are vast and complex, and being able to give customers confidence that you understand your scope 1, 2, 3 emissions and therefore your carbon footprint or your power usage and so on and so forth. When you're dealing with, from Arqiva's perspective, broadcast transmission infrastructure, which uses a lot of power, right? So we have to look at the big wins and the things that we can measure, focus on, and deliver meaningful benefit around. And then we have to work, and I think it was touched on lots. Collaborate and work with partners so that we can really truly build up that big picture, which is what the end customers want, because they've got the same challenge, right? So that means using the tools that Amazon Web Services provide, for example, to give you data on your carbon usage or power usage in their data centers and services. So it's with difficulty. I think it's probably one of the key things, but something we have to tackle.
Yeah, and I think the cloud providers, in theory, they talk a lot about their green credentials, and how deep that goes is difficult for us to actually fully understand. But what we do know is that they've got an economy of scale where they can invest in appropriate technology. They can fully utilize a lot of their infrastructure, make best use of that. Whereas traditionally, as dealing with event-based broadcast, you'd have to always build out for your biggest event or your worst day, and that always naturally lends itself to unused capability and over-provisioning for that particular case. So I think that's the one place that, of course, the cloud providers find themselves well positioned to aggregate a lot of that work that needs to be done, and that should then translate to better green credentials, of course.
Chris? Yeah. I'm not sure we are getting the data from the big cloud vendors yet. We supply a software layer. I think ideally what would be nice is the software layer could pull the information from the big cloud vendors and say, look, if you choose to make this production with this choice, then it's going to cost you this much in CO2, however you want to measure your sustainability. But until we get open with that data from the cloud vendors, we can talk about what we're using today, but it's going to be difficult for us to be upfront without the data from the back-end cloud providers.
So what data do you get at the moment?
Very limited, as far as I'm aware. We can tell you what you're running on, what version and what instance type you're running on, but what that means in the background isn't very clear at the moment. So it's not my area of expertise. Yeah. I can comment a little bit on it, but I don't think we're getting that data from the big cloud vendors.
Yeah, go on, Jonathan.
The cloud vendors are very good at telling you when you need to buy more cloud stuff.
Yes. So it exists. That data is there. It's just a question of accessing it.
Well, of course, but at the moment it's up to us to try and gather all of the data and try and work out what the overall impact is. I think they probably need to lead that position by being able to give it to us as a stream. They give us streams of data for a lot of the technical footprint, a lot of our utilization resources, because that allows us to make choices about whether we need to buy more stuff. But it would be good to have a stream that allowed us to curate that information to our customers as well.
And Srihari, anything to add on that question around measurement and kind of assessing impact?
So again, it's not my core area of expertise, but internally, constantly on our, say, CloudPort, which is our core product, constantly we're looking to reduce how we are utilizing resources on the cloud. That means reduced costs. That means obviously we constantly are moving down or reducing the kind of processors we're using in terms of processing power or memory capacity, etc. Again, on a lighter note, we started using edge device-based playout. I'm going back to 2013 with our first deployments, which was interestingly at Arqiva. That was not an Intel processor at all. That was an ARM DSP-based architecture, which used to consume hardly any power. So from an engineering perspective, at least all of us as vendors can fundamentally rethink some of the systems and architectures we are using. That's something core to how we approach problems as a company. But anything around cloud or power usage, all that's not my area of expertise. Sorry.
Okay. Well, listen, chaps, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for. So thank you very much for all of your contributions. Fantastic panel. Thank you very much for all of your insights. Please join me in thanking the panel. Thank you.